Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome back to Friendless. I'm your long-lost host, James Avramenko, and this week we're doing a very special 2025 retrospective episode. We're going to be looking back on the year that was, the highs, the lows, the liminal in-betweens, all the funny, awkward moments that we still have yet to figure out. We're going to look at guest highlights, the current mental state of the host, the current state of friendship in culture. I'm going to give a roundup of my favorite books, movies, music of the year, and then we're going to cap it off with an exciting announcement of what's coming down the pipeline for 2026. So it's time to lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and let's get into it. 2025 is officially in the can. Congratulations, everybody. We made it. I thought I would, kick things off with a little bit of an update for listeners who might be wondering where I've been. I realize I kind of just dropped off the face of the earth there for a little bit. But realistically, I kind of needed to. I have been on a extended medical leave since about mid-September. I was on the cusp of a pretty monumental, we'll call it a mentee B, at work, at my day job, and my doctor said, hey, maybe you should take a little breather. So that's what I did. And in doing so and kind of stepping back from my work, I also felt the need to step back from kind of everything and just sort of let myself breathe and let myself recharge. I tried to avoid sort of stock terms as much as I can, so I tend to try to avoid things like burnout or whatever, but the truth of the matter is I don't think I can really talk about it without talking about that. The thing is that in my personal experience, I feel like the word is, I wouldn't say misused so much as misunderstood, and more so about sort of not only the factors that come to bear to exacerbate it, but also the factors on sort of how we get out of it. Because the truth of the matter is that I don't see a sort of a roadmap. It's not a puzzle to be solved, and there isn't really like, oh, you're feeling this, just do this and this and this, and then you're okay. Because, there's sort of no way to, I guess the word's sort of tangibly rebuild energy levels when you are surrounded by capitalism. I put out a TikTok recently that talked very briefly about this idea of there's no way to self-soothe your way out of poverty, and I'm really stuck on that idea. I just see it everywhere. Part of my day job was to do career development, and seeing all these young kids with all the skills and all the talent and all the ability, who just wanted an opportunity, and if they got it, they would just work themselves to death, and for nothing, for no return, for no benefit, and that lie that has been passed on to us about just make yourself irreplaceable. There's no such thing anymore. So regrettably, I'm starting the episode on a soapbox. But I just I have hit a point of feeling like it's futile, or at least I was in that place in September. I was feeling like there was no amount of work I could do. There was no amount of effort I could put in that would be noticed or recognized or valued in any capacity. And I was looking for, we'll call it a variety of escape routes. Some more permanent than others. So I got some help. I took my breather. I'm still on the break for the foreseeable future, but I am also at a place where, I need to be doing something creative. I need to be expressing myself, and this is the arena to do that. So I'm back, and I'm really excited to be doing so. And look, I'm sorry to just gloss over that part and not really provide any concrete what do you call it? Constructive, steps of what we could do. And also, I don't mean to gloss over what could likely be heard as pretty heavy admissions. But I want you to know I'm okay. I'm safe. Everything's okay. And also, when it comes to this idea of sort of where does burnout begin, I think the simple act of gratitude really needs to be pushed more, and not gratitude for the job, but gratitude from the job. That's where I'm coming from these days. And I don't really want to spend more time on that than I need to. But because, how do you get shitheads to be thankful for the people that they're exploiting? I don't know. And I don't feel like bashing my head against that brick wall anytime soon, or for much more time, let's say. But instead, I want to talk about the show because I've been reflecting on it, and I just had an absolutely incredible year. Even though it, for me, felt like it kind of might have ended with a little bit of a wet fart, the year itself was absolutely monumental. I had just some absolutely incredible interviews. I listened back through the season and was just constantly blown away by the sheer magic of the batch of guests that I got on. Kicking things off with a guest like Dean Spade, who I still, months later after talking, am just like vibrating from not only the excitement and the honor, but just the wisdom that came out of that episode. What a monumental perspective that he brings to the work that he's doing, and how important the work that he does is. If you haven't yet, please, listen to the episode, but more than that, buy a copy of Love in a Fucked Up World. He's got a brand new updated version of Mutual Aid coming out shortly. Make sure you buy it directly from him so that the funds go directly to the people who are doing the work. And just, keep showing up. I think often about what he talked about, there aren't more or less hours in the day for us than there were for people who have done every single thing in the past. No matter what it is, we've all been working with the same amount of time, and this idea of showing up, but more so, I think it bleeds into this idea of accountability and not letting yourself off the hook. That doesn't mean flagellate yourself. That doesn't mean overexert yourself and burn yourself out. What it means to me is this idea of, if there is something that you want to do, find ways to do it within your bandwidth, and don't wait for someone else to do it for you. That was actually kind of echoed a little bit in a separate guest with Dust Kwaine, where we talked about, I asked them some of my sort of tentpole boilerplate questions, and I continue to be so struck by the way that they answered, because they sort of technically didn't. And I love that so much, because what they did instead was point out that these I was asking for a prescription for something that doesn't have a one size fits all answer. And instead, it's about what works for you. And so, it was a nice reminder of actually something that I try really hard to do with the show, but just every once in a while need a reminder of, which is, this isn't a self-help. This isn't, Mel Robbins huckster shit. This isn't like, if you do this, you'll be rich or whatever the fuck, right? Like, this is the brain, and there isn't one answer to it. And something that, I know I respond much more strongly to, and I try to embody in my behavior going forward, is this idea of modeling behavior, showing rather than telling, which I think gets really showcased in my episodes with, guests like Lee, guests like Gavin, guests like Tessa, these guests who are dear friends of mine, who we're not sitting down and talking about, how is it that we are good friends. We're just showing what a good friendship sounds like. I feel like these episodes really remind me that you can't really tell anyone what to do. And I think that this is one of the great sort of failings of the internet is we get on our little soapboxes and we tell everybody else what to do, but we don't necessarily do it ourselves. And I think that that's been part of the course for human nature. Human history. I just think it's very predominant and very visible today online, is this idea of rules for thee, not for me. And I think the way that we can truly, if your objective is to um, change people's behavior, the way you do that is by changing your own and showing that there's this other way. You don't tell them to do it. You do it for yourself. And then if somebody asks, then you say, well, this is the way I do it. I don't know. Try it out. And I think that that's one of the biggest sort of themes that I'm proudest of from this batch of interviews, is this way of sort of modeling the way I'm living my life. And it might not necessarily work for other people. Hey, it doesn't always work for me, but it's what I got right now. And rather than sitting down and walking people through it, I'm trying my best to just show this is how I ask questions. This is how I listen. This is how I show up, whatever it might be, right? In listening back to some of the kind of more kind of hidden gems, I guess, some of the episodes that I'm extremely proud of, but feel like didn't necessarily get the attention they deserved. Guests like Zazu Payne, Nicole Thompson, Florence Romano. These were episodes that talked about a few different things in a variety of angles. But for me, parts that really stood out was this idea of how do we choose meaning? And so many of these guests were so brave in sharing stories of their own personal fuck ups. What did they learn from ineffective choices? And how did they adjust in order to develop a more authentic connection going forward? And that is such a deep value for me these days, is this idea of accountability, and not just playing the victim, not just saying it's somebody else's fault, why everything is wrong with my life. Yes, people do harm. And also, you play a part within the narrative, within the structure. That doesn't mean you asked for it. That doesn't mean, whatever. What it means is there are situations where you have ownership, and it's far more beneficial for you to accept that ownership and work with it rather than try and sort of shirk the responsibilities onto somebody else. It's like this idea that where we are as a society is not the responsibility of one or two or three people. It's every single person who lives within that society. We all bear a level of responsibility for the state of the world today. Yes, some people bear a greater responsibility in certain facets, but that doesn't exonerate us from our own responsibility. And I've started thinking of it like, the old game is finding a scapegoat, right? Whether it's a minority, whether it's the rich, the poor, the gay, whatever, whoever it is, to blame, right? Whether it's just my coworker, my boss, my sister, my whoever, finding a scapegoat and pinning the fault on them. That's the old game. And to me, the new game, the game I want to play, the game I want to be a part of, is asking, what part did I play, and how can I adjust that going forward? Not only for my own benefit, which it will have, but also for the people around me. We are seeing that the need for authentic community is more dire than ever before. We are segmented, we are isolated, we are algorithmatized, and we are not seeing the real world. And we only do that by first asking, how is it we're behaving? And how can we go forward? It's sort of like, is it self versus community or self and community? But I just realized I have inadvertently slipped right into the hypocrisy of saying, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just, but I'm just trying to wax philosophical here, people. Okay. And you know what? On that note, I'm actually going to shift over to a little bit more of a personal reflection of sort of how 2025 went for me. Some of the improvements, some of the reoccurring struggles, and some of the practices and tools that really stuck and really helped. For me, the biggest game changer was completing my DBT group therapy. I have never had a more radical, eye-opening experience than that program. I don't think I could be more grateful to the Vancouver Health, what's it called Vancouver Coastal Health program, and the people who led that program, as well as the people who attended it with me. That group was incredible, and I just remain so grateful for it. And those tools have been such a radical transformation of how I show up for myself, how I show up for my community, for the people around me, to the point where I'm actually planning on finally making good on my long threatened DBT mini season on the show. That's going to be coming out starting in February. I'm going to be breaking down, it's not going to be one of those like just sterile step by steps. It's more about storytelling, lived experience with sort of like what could I have done with the tools type thing. So that's going to be coming down the pipeline. I could not be more excited about that. Another big shift was that this year I finally went vegan, and I couldn't be prouder of it. My partner, who I've been dating going on almost a year now, finally convinced me of it, and I just could not be more relieved to have finally taken the plunge. I think people have a misconception of what vegan food means. Vegan isn't just like all you can eat is kale. Oreos are vegan. you know, Sour Patch Kids are vegan, right? Nachos. Anyway, whatever. It really, for me, it got to the point where I could no longer justify participating in the meat industry if I was also actively messaging for, the humane treatment of human life. I felt I had to expand that to the humane treatment of all life. And it's one of my more hardliner, and I know I'm sounding like a little bit of a vegan born again here, but I can't square those pegs where if somebody is messaging for the humane treatment somewhere, but they're also eating cheeseburgers, it's just those things don't jive for me anymore. And that dietary shift has had a real energy awakening for me. Of course, the other side is that there is a struggle with diet shifts, as well as, my continued sobriety. I hit 2 years sober, and, I will always be very vocal about the importance of sobriety and the importance of these dietary choices, and also acknowledging that they are incredibly isolating and incredibly lonely. Tell somebody you're a sober vegan and watch their eyes glaze over, while also somehow simultaneously seeing their like shoulders, then their hackles perk up, as if like they both want nothing to do with you, but they can't wait to fight you for some unknown reason. But I also feel like these are both really good examples of things that have a lot of short-term pain for long-term gain. Look, I'm always gonna say get sober if you want to, in whatever capacity you want. But I also, I don't personally really believe in those kind of like October type things, or dry November, or whatever it might be, because for me, the real benefits of sobriety didn't really kick in for like 6 or 7 months, and so to me, it's like you really have to commit to the bit to actually see any of the benefits, because it's really fucking hard. And as case in point, I've been trying to quit vaping for the last couple of months and not having the same results, that's for sure. um but to truly dedicate yourself to something like that is extremely difficult and extremely painful but you will eventually, or at least I have eventually, come out the other side and found the people that I needed, not the people I thought I needed. Now, I guess I can kind of use that as a little bit of a segue into. I don't want to spend a ton of time because, this is kind of a useless segment. I just thought it would be kind of funny. But I thought I would kind of like open up the rumination floodgates and sort of ask myself, like, what does friendship look like in 2025 going into 2026? And I think that is one of those questions that can't possibly have one singular answer, but I have been noticing certain trends that I wanted to kind of highlight and amplify because I think that they are really beneficial and really effective choices that I know I've been practicing in my own life, and I think will be gaining some traction as time goes on. So one of the big focuses for me this year was this idea of effective communication. You know, we all have different wants and different needs, and we can all show up with different varieties of skill and ability and bandwidth and all the rest. Um, so what I've tried to do is really kind of interrogate what are the ways that I value people showing up. How do I feel connected? How do I feel loved? How do I yada yada yada? What I then do is I try to do that for others. But I don't do it quietly. I don't do it in that kind of like maybe they'll pick up on that. Basically, what I do is I try to model it and then I try to call it out from there. So it's this idea of like, for me, a value is uh, uh, contact, is reaching out, is checking in, is planning stuff, these kinds of things. And I don't always take the landing on that, but that's a value of mine that I work towards. So what I will do is I will I'll basically I'll plan something. I'll reach out. I'll say, hey, how you been? Do you want to do this? Yada yada. But then during that hangout, I'll say, hey, this is a way that I really value connection. Is it something that you can possibly reciprocate? And I try really hard to not frame it around a need. I think we often mistake wants with needs. I think that is just the nature of a consumerist society that makes us think we need a new iPad every year, or that another pair of pants or another pair of shoes or whatever it might be, when we want it. We don't necessarily need it. So I try to frame it with as little pressure as possible and as little shame as possible, and and just saying like, yeah, these are the things I respond to. If you can, awesome. If you can't, let's find a balance. If somebody can't show up for you, that doesn't mean they're an evil, malignant, vindictive person. It just means they can't show up that way, right? Building out from that is this sort of idea of what have I been observing online? What are the conversations I've been seeing in social media? And truthfully, I've been a lot less active online this year than in previous years. I started to really kind of realize that, the one of the core values of this show is kind of inherently anti-social media. I don't have some kind of polished media plan, and I likely never will. That's just kind of not what the show is about. But what I do observe is these conversations around authenticity, as we talk about connection, but also there's this, you've probably heard it bandied around, this idea of the loneliness epidemic. And I think that this ties into what I'm trying to scratch at, is this idea of people are lonely for a myriad of reasons, some socially imposed, some personally imposed. And I think a big part of it is sitting around waiting for other people to call. Myself, I'm ADHD amongst a myriad of other ransom note letters, as I've said before. And so I don't have object permanence, so I have to really actively work towards remembering that other people exist. And I want to offer that same grace to others. If I haven't seen somebody in a while, they probably just forgot I existed, because I hang out with a lot of neurodivergent people. So, I'm trying to give that grace. I think another element of this kind of loneliness thing is this idea of we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their actions. And, you see this most clearly in these men. This is a tired old trope, but the nice guy, the person who sees themselves as the main character and who thinks that they deserve a thing because they've bought into the narrative of whatever it might be. But then the moment it doesn't go their way, they dysregulate and they snap and they go really, really intense. And there's a much deeper conversation to be had here. I think at the surface level, though, it's this idea of expecting others to do the work for them. And not actually investigate themselves. because it's to me, I read these conversations, I see these screenshots of texts and yada yada and interactions with these strangers, and the first reaction almost all the time is, well, you're lying to yourself first, um, because it's how do I put it? Let me frame it like this. The easiest way to not connect to somebody is try to pretend to be the thing you think they want and not just be who you are. And when the masquerade inevitably crumbles because you're pretending to be someone you're not, that then leads you into like emotional dysregulation, and you end up using anger, which can be a very helpful emotion in certain situations, but in that situation, you end up using it in the improper way. You transfer your frustration of yourself and your lies onto this other person, and you start blaming them, and then suddenly you're calling, women you've never met all kinds of names on the internet. And I recognize, look, that is an extremely reductive, and I worry that it might be sounding like I'm overly sympathizing um, with people who very well could be very dangerous and very well could be causing true, genuine harm. I think that's a piece of what I'm trying to push towards, though, is, the women being attacked don't owe this person understanding. I think that socially speaking, though, we collectively owe everyone some level of understanding. Ostracizing somebody, exiling somebody is a fast track to radicalizing them. And instead, I think that a much more effective tactic is to get to the bottom of where is this dysregulation coming from? What is behind this anger? Why is it that you feel compelled to lie and to mask and to pretend and on so on and so forth? What fantasies have you bought into that aren't being fulfilled? I'm rambling here, but I'm endlessly fascinated by this stuff, and I think I could kind of pontificate on it for a while, but I won't take up too much more time on the thought, mostly because I derailed myself and kind of lost my train of thought there. I guess really what it boils down to for me is this idea of, I think a lot of the issues we are kind of collectively examining, I think we're coming at it from the incorrect angles. And we're coming at it with this intention to separate, this intention to fight, this intention to push away and push back, when for me, the more effective choice is collectivism, right? Is about, okay, how do we adjust your behavior so that you don't have to be exiled? How do we make sure that that type of behavior isn't acceptable, but you are not banished? Instead, you have the opportunity to learn and to shift and to grow and to try something new and stay part of the group. Because I think that's where so much of this fear and anxiety comes from, is if you fuck up, then you're out in the cold, right? And the lone wolf dies, despite what all the right-wing memes want to brag about being the lone wolf dies, always. Just like the lone human, we are a tribal, we are a communal monkey, and so we are terrified of being alone. And I think that it is part of our personal sort of social responsibility to try and strengthen that communal bond. Yeah, sure, there are some people who are more difficult to work with than others, but theoretically speaking, philosophically speaking, I think that it behooves us to work towards that. But again, that's not on the individual. It's not up to you to fix some other person. It's about collective action, group behavior, getting people together, not in some kind of like shame session, but in sort of like, how do we group communicate? I'm bouncing all over the place. Give me a second. I'm going to take a breath. I guess one of the big positive shifts that I've witnessed that I really want to, highlight and encourage further engagement with is this idea of getting back to seeing people in person. we for years have um, really, at least I know I have really indulged the remote world. It's an easier commute for work. It's simpler to just text somebody a meme. And these are all really beneficial tools. They're beneficial steps, but they're not the full picture. They're corner pieces of the puzzle, you know. And I think the real body of work is showing up in person, getting that like skin on skin, getting that like close human proximity, and just seeing your friends in real life consistently. What consistency means can be anybody's answer, but not just texting all the time and staying in your little hovel. I talk often about this idea of there is a big difference between comfort and safety. Comfort is a bit of a charade. It's a bit of a lie. It makes you think you're safe when in fact you're just stagnating. You know, nothing grows in comfort, but it still is safe. Just because there's pressure on you doesn't mean you're unsafe. And I think recognizing the difference between what is comfortable and what is safe is going to be really beneficial. And I think I'm seeing more and more people lean into that. You know, it's not always comfortable to have to go outside and see people. It's a pain in the ass. You know, I live on the other side of the city from most of my friends, and nobody's coming out here, right? So, yeah, it sucks. And also, it's part of my value system to see people, and it's beneficial for me to see people. So I'm gonna make it happen. And I think whatever form that takes for you is really important to recognize and to foster, is this idea of whatever it might look like for you, make sure you are mindfully putting in the time and the effort to see people in person. It's been a huge help for me, and I think it'll, I know it's kind of a bit of a stock, but it's like, come on, like it's the best. Great transition, James. Speaking of helpful things, I want to talk about fun, the real fun and potatoes of 2025, and that was the best books that I read this year. And the fun thing is, this ties directly into a huge piece of my friend group and another kind of, I guess you could call it, tactic or behavior or whatever, that I implemented this year, and really collectively, like the group, we all made sure happened consistently. And that was, we created a book club at the start of the year. It was just three of us, and then it grew to four and grew to five, and by the end of the year there's six of us. And we made a real point, at least once a month we picked a book, we read the book, we met, we talked about it, and it became such a foundational element of my year. I can't recommend starting a book club highly enough. Not only does it give you the motivation to read, but also, it's a reason to hang. And it's not just homework, right? Because something that you find when, look, I'm a voracious reader. I'm going to get to it, how many books I read this year. But so often I'm reading in a vacuum. I read a book, I put it down, I don't ever talk about it, I don't ever think about it again. But with a book club, it encourages you to engage not only with what the book meant to you, but to listen to how the other people responded to it, what kind of connections they kind of built out of their engagement with the book. And it teaches you not only how to, read on a deeper level, but it also teaches you about your friends. You get to hear about, this book sparked this memory, or I didn't like this because, or whatever it might be. And so it fosters this really healthy conversation, and you get to learn so much more about the people in your life, and it's an absolute blast. Even moments of disagreement end up being a type of connection, because it gets to show each other that there are safe boundaries here, that we don't have to agree on everything in order to still love each other, and to remember that conversation isn't a fight. I think another little tangent. I think we mistake conversation with debate, And far too often we get into conversation with people and we slip into this mindset of I have to win. I have to fight this person with my words. And it's like, no, no, no. You could just listen, and who cares if you disagree? It comes back to that quote I love. Do you want to be right or do you want to be righteous? You don't have to fight everybody all the time. Sometimes you can just go, huh, and then move on. But a quick rundown of some of my personal favorite books this year. So I read a grand total of 86 books this year. Jesus Christ. And that's actually one of my lower years. Some of the highlights, some of these were read in book club, some of them just by myself, but some of my favorites of the year were Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, The Five by Haley Rubenhold, The Children of Jocasta by Natalie Haynes. I love, love, love everything Natalie Haynes writes. Shout out all my Greek myth nerds. Woo! 10 Bridges I've Burnt by Brontes Purnell. Holy fuck. And Penance by Eliza Clark. That one is actually especially interesting if you've ever read Columbine by Dave Cullen. Penance is a really interesting kind of fictionalized commentary on true crime and narrative nonfiction and the like. Really, really fascinating book. I'm never really sure like how exactly to sort of like talk about books on here. I don't want to like just expound on it the way I do on everything else. But I feel like all the books, even though they're dealing with radically different subject matter, The Five is about an investigation into the real biographical lives of the five canonical Jack the Ripper victims. Whereas Giovanni's Room is about repressed gay man in 1950s Paris. Children of Jocasta is, a retelling of the Oedipus legend. Is there a difference? I don't know. But funny enough, all the books that resonated the most with me, all these listed included, were the ones that did the thing that I was talking about earlier, which is taking a fresh perspective on things that you might think are cut and dry or simple, or you already know the story, or whatever it might be. And ironically, this comes at the exact same time where just earlier today I was thinking about how I'm exhausted by historical hot takes. I'm exhausted by people being like, so-and-so actually was a piece of shit because he this. And it's like, who's this benefiting? Like, what? Who cares? What? Learn the history, yes. Study the history, yes. But sort of scoring brownie points, especially kind of like moral or these kind of like holier than thou pot shots at historical figures, like I don't see the benefit of it. But that's beside the point. What was I saying? You should read more. Read books. Books are great. LeVar Burton, wherever you are, I love you with both feet planted on the ground. Oh, one last recommendation. Monsters by Claire Dederer. I probably am saying that wrong. Another perspective of how do we engage with, artists who have done horrible things. How do we engage with their art? Fascinating exploration of that. It came out a couple years ago. I finally got around to it earlier this year, and holy shit, what a read! I'll put all the book titles in the show notes for the episode. So if you didn't catch all the names, I will put a list of them in there. But yeah, fascinating stuff. Go read a book, you big nerd. A couple movie highlights, and funny enough, again, this links. We're actually planning in 2026. We're going to be expanding our book club into also being a movie club. So some of the books we read in the coming year will have had movie adaptations. I'm also high key pushing for what if we read a movie novelization or two, because movie novelizations are my favorite thing in the entire world. I know. I am mentally ill. It's fine. But so we're going to be doing kind of a pairing of, the book and the movie and yada, yada. So I swear this all fits. I'm not just shoehorning this in. But okay, let's do top 5 in no particular order of movies that came out this year that I liked. Number one's got to go to Sinners. That movie ruled. There was so much spit play in that movie. God damn. Final Destination Bloodlines. That movie fucking ripped. The first 15 minutes were the best. It's like the best Buster Keaton if everything went wrong scenario. Loved it. Is it Buster Keaton? Is that who I'm thinking of? I think I actually mean Rube Goldberg, but I think Buster Keaton did a thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Check it out. It's a ton of fun. 28 years later, hell yes. I didn't think any movie would be better than Eddington. That movie was a fucking masterpiece, and I absolutely loved it, and did not think the movies could be topped. And then One Battle After Another came out, and I went, oh yeah, okay, there it is. As they say on one of my favorite movie podcasts, movies are so back, baby. This year I got one of those Cineplex, I don't know what they're called, passes. I get a free movie a month for some exorbitant amount of money. It would probably be cheaper if I just went and bought a ticket, but it reminds me to go to the movies, and I've been having a real good time. So there's a few recommendations. Again, I'm not gonna go much deeper into that. I like media. I love me those performing arts or creative arts. Anyway, God, I'm tired. Okay, I gotta wrap this up soon. 2026. That's where we're going next. Right? I did the calculations, right? Oh my God, I'm getting fucking loopy here. Okay. So a couple really exciting things are coming down the pipeline. I mentioned earlier I'm going to be doing a number of mini seasons revolving around kind of a deeper exploration of specific topics. The first one is going to be about DBT skills. That's going to be starting in February. There will still be the continued interviews of a variety of guests, but the big one, and the one that I'm just so excited about, I am going to be collaborating with the Book Warehouse on Main to be doing a monthly live episode in the store with local authors. We recorded our first kind of like pilot episode actually back in October with Genki Ferguson, and that episode is actually going to be coming out next week. So you'll be able to kind of get a little bit of a taste of more to come. Genki's amazing. It was such a blast chatting with him. But shout out Debbie at the Book Warehouse because this is essentially her brainchild. I was in there one day, we got chatting, and she just threw out, would you ever want to record a podcast here? And I was like, fuck yeah, I would. So we're making it happen. So yeah, once a month, we'll be, and it'll be recorded live, so you'll be able to watch it right as it's being recorded. And it'll be local authors. We won't be just talking about their books, but we'll be talking about a myriad of other kind of elements around the themes that those books explore. Things around anger management, themes around unhoused, the drug crisis, and around community care, mutual aid, all these kinds of good things. So I am vibrating. I'm so excited to be doing that, to be partnering with Book Warehouse, and to be getting that project underway. I know I get excited about these things. I tend to overpromise and underdeliver on these things, but the Book Warehouse one, I truly know is going to be something special. I am trying to push myself a little bit more to be doing a little bit more expanded work, on my Substack and these kinds of things. How that pans out, I've yet to truly decide, but you can be sure that I will at the very least talk about trying to do something, so be sure to tune in for that. But that is kind of gonna be it for me. So yeah, we're back. Friendless is so back, baby. So yeah, 2025, I hardly knew ye, and I wish you well. 2026, bring it on, baby. Let's see what you got. I'm so excited to get back into the swing of things and see what I can do with this ridiculous little pet project of mine. Thank you so much. If you are listening to this, that means you have listened through to this entire episode, and I am so grateful and impressed And I hope I haven't, scared you off from listening to more because I'm going to be back. Check the show notes for links to my socials and the books and the movies and all that fun stuff. For more information about the project at Book Warehouse, all that stuff in the show notes. While you're there, be sure to sign up for the Substack. It is free. It is fun. There is content coming down the pipeline, I swear. I know I say that every week, but this time it's different, I promise. But that is, I am talked out. I am hitting a manic overload. So I'm going to stop talking. Have yourself a wonderful week. Have yourself a very safe New Year's. And I hope to catch you back here next week. But hey, I'm not going to worry about that right now. And neither should you, because that is then and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I love you and I wish you well. Fun and safety, sweet peas.